All eyes on the University of Missouri this morning after a student-led revolt forced out the school's president and chancellor. Both are stepping down over what many call systemic racism on campus that the leaders did not adequately address. The announcements brought cheers on campus, as we see right here. And today, the football team, which had refused to play until the president resigned, is set to resume practice. Students and faculty who were taking part in the protest are now heading back to their classes. And graduate student John Butler, at the center of the revolt, has ended his hunger strike.
It was everybody who chose to stand up in this time who made this possible. This was not Jonathan Butler. This was the Mizzou community, for one of the first times that I've ever seen, stand together united.
But it is not mission accomplished yet for these students, so what changes must come next? Let's bring in CNN legal analyst Paul Callan and Laura Coates, a former trial attorney in the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Laura, to you first, what is your reaction to this student revolt? It certainly shows the power of protest, but how far can these students go with their demands?
Well, what it showed really was the power of the purse. While many people are applauding the football program as being the impetus behind the president resigning, what you really saw here was a cost-benefit analysis of the university that included not only a consideration of the millions of dollars brought in by the university football program, but also under Title VI, when they have to be proactive about combating and preventing discrimination on a school campus that receives federal funding. And to that end, the students can certainly go far in their demands to ensure that any investigation by the Civil Rights Division demonstrates that the university has complied with their Title VI obligations.
So what do you think, Paul, to what Laura said? Because it certainly did seem like the quote-unquote game changer once the football team stepped in and sort of protested this. Do you think that this was all about the money more than anything?
Yeah, I would have to agree with Laura on this. And if you look at the statistics, black students, African-American students are about, I think, 8% of the student population at the University of Missouri. So they're not a majority. They're not even a large minority at the university, but they wield enormous influence because of the sports programs and, I think, as Laura explained, because of Title VI. Just a quick analogy, if you look at the way colleges are handling rape cases now, they have special procedures in place. All of that has to do with the federal government threatening to withdraw funding unless they act. So the specter of federal involvement really causes these campuses to move.
But Laura, what about these new demands, new curriculum, new staff, things like that? They've already ousted the chancellor and the president, but they're not ending their fight here.
No, they're not. In fact, their list, I think, is 8 demands long. And part of what they're asking for is retention of diverse students. They're asking for diverse faculty members. They're asking for more funding allocated to programs that actually help marginalized students who feel that their experiences have been trivialized by the administration. But there is one particular aspect of their demands that has a lot of people having a visceral reaction. And that is for the president of the university not only to step down, but to acknowledge what they call the white privilege. And because of that demand, people are really turning a side eye and being a little adverse to their actual demands, when in fact their radicalism had to have a radical perspective. However, what they're really asking for, the remaining 7, are really worthwhile and really valid points that Title VI already requires.
But we're seeing this play out, these grievances play out at other universities. So look at the big picture, Missouri, Yale, Ithaca College. Laura and Paul, I want to quickly get both of your perspectives. Where do you strike that balance between free speech and protecting students' feelings?
You know, I think the administrators have to start acting like grown-ups and evaluate on a merit basis the demands and not just collapse because there's been a demonstration. I think they should do that at the University of Missouri and other universities. You know, in the 60s when they faced this, they gave in to everything, eliminated core curriculums, radically changed universities, and I'm not so sure it was such a great idea.
Quickly, Laura.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it tends to be that people are averse because there's a First Amendment right to speak your mind and say the things, even if they're unpopular viewpoints. And the Supreme Court in our society has said that a university is the ideal setting to have this sort of universe of conflicting and competing ideas. However, at its core, your rights stop where mine begin. And my right to attend a university that receives federal funding from taxpayers, I have the right to have an inclusive environment and not to be traumatized through racial discrimination. And you have the right to speak what you want, but when they're in conflict, Title VI wins.
Paul Callan, Laura Coates, interesting to hear your perspectives. Thanks so much. And Paul, stick around.
Thank
We have
you.
more to discuss with you. Up next, a judge ambushed in her own driveway, shot as she was driving home, and now someone's in custody. Hear about his connection to this judge. Plus, Donald Trump has made it his biggest issue, and now a judge ruling against President Obama's efforts to keep millions of illegal immigrants